my people. You are my people. I understand you. You understand me. We are people. Which kind of feels good, you know, because you go to school after your first summer and you're kind of like, oh my gosh, nobody gets me. Nobody gets this whole Southwestern thing. They think I'm weird. And a lot of that has to do with because you come off your first summer very weird. But here, you're not weird. You're one of us. And that's good. That's good. So if you check your schedule for tonight, I'm not Ira. Apparently, there was someone named Ira who was supposed to be the keynote speaker tonight. Is that in the schedule? Okay, so I'm just telling you, backup motivational speaker is a new title in my resume. Like, you got like, hey, I've been a motivational speaker, and then you got, I'm the backup motivational speaker. It's like just right below motivational speaker. And that's me tonight. But I want you to know that I am committed to this being awesome, or as close as I can get. And I want you to know that the other person was a college professor. Boring. Named Ira. Come on. I mean, who was excited to hear what he had to say, right? And I'm thinking, there's like two kinds of people, Ira. People who find a way and people who find an excuse. So you're not here tonight. Guess who's filling in? Old Pat Roach. There was a meeting earlier today, and they said, who do we know who loves to hear the sound of his own voice? Pat Roach is in town. Let's call him. So Ryan called me, and he said, Pat, we have an opportunity for you. And I said, is there a microphone involved? And he said, yes. And I said, well, then I'm in. So that actually exhausts all of my notes. You guys are definitely getting your money's worth tonight. Okay, so let's see, what should we talk about? All right, now I'm just gonna go with this, and if I can keep this somewhere in a semblance of a, concurrent thought stream, then we're all getting really lucky. But if it diverts, whatever, you've had your fair share of laughs, that's good enough. So, all right, so let's talk about this. This whole concept of people get weird when they come off of their first summer and they go back to school. Okay, can anybody identify with that? Did anybody feel like the transition back into regular life was a little awkward? I don't know about you guys, like when I got back home and saw my parents, I could talk for hours without stopping, without them saying a word, without them asking an additional question. I could just go because, you do your summer and you have this maximum experience. It's beyond anything you've ever done before. And you just gotta get it out, right? It's like detoxing, you gotta just express yourself. It's like therapy. And you've been talking all summer nonstop, so it kind of all fits together to be one big mess. And I know my parents just sat there and smiled and listened, and we'd go out to dinner and I'd have a full plate of food and everyone else is done eating. And it was kind of like, well, something's going on there. So I brought that back to my college campus. And that was special for all my friends. So, and I think a lot of it has to do with how we make the decision to come back to do this again. I remember my first summer, and everybody, not everybody thinks that selling books is the hardest thing they've ever done, but a lot of people do. But no matter how you gauge it, I think it's fair to say that when it comes time to decide, should I do this again? It's kind of a decision of principle more than desire. Would you guys track with that? So here's where I was. So my first summer I sold in North Dakota. And yes, and I thought I got lucky because I got good turf. because I was in North Dakota. No distractions except for bingo and Red Lobster. Those are the two things I'm like, when I'm done, I'm going to hit that bingo hall, and then we're going to Red Lobster. Of course, you finish deliveries, and you're like, get out, let's go. But I remember over the course of summer, I ended up doing really well, and I sold about 4,400 units my first summer. My organizational leader was a guy named Todd McWhirter, and Todd sold, you guys know Todd. Todd was such a hero to me, is such a hero to me. Todd's a great guy. And I remember that he had sold more units in the history of Southwestern than any other person for a career. The summer that he was my OL, so I'm a first year, he sold 13,000 units that summer. That's a lot of units. It's not bad for what it can do for the kids. All right? So what was weird is I get to week 11, and we're at a small park, and we're filling out our cards for deliveries and all that stuff. And he's like, Pat, come take a little walk with me. So I'm like, I spend time with Todd. This is great. So we go for a little walk around the park, and he's like, we're getting to the time of year where we start to think about who we'd like to have come back and help us for next year and lead the team and the managers that we think would be good examples. And, we were talking, and we just really think that you'd be a good fit for that. So I wanted to see how you feel about coming back to do this again. And I was like, hell no. And he was like, stood back, and I'm like, hell no, Todd. I've been telling myself all summer, all I have to do is finish. And I can hold my head high, and I can go home, and I can just live my life. And I know I did it. And Todd was just like totally taken back. I think, a lot of student managers go, well, the top producers, they're probably the easier ones to sign up, so let's get them on board, and then we'll work on the harder ones later. And I think he was thinking this will be a shoo-in. But here's what's really cool about that moment. In the history of my life, I can honestly say there have been a handful of specific moments where I felt like God actually broke through and spoke to me personally in a moment. And that was actually one of them. Now, I don't really remember what Todd was doing on his reapproach, as we keep going around the park, and he's taking, approach number 2 at this whole thing. I don't remember what he said. But in my mind, what I felt like God was saying to me was, of course you were able to finish the summer. You're a result of what your parents raised you to be. And you didn't know what you were getting into, but they raised you to be the type of person to stay committed, to finish stuff out. The thing is, I have things in store for you that you're going to be really scared to do. And you're going to have to choose those things anyway. So the fact that you're scared about this is preparation for that. It was real. And literally 5 minutes after I was like, hell no, I was like, okay, Todd, I'm in. And he was just like, what? Okay. Just like, here, just fill this out. But the decision was one of principle. It wasn't one of desire. So I come back to school, and what I did is I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this again, I want to bring some friends. That'll at least make it more fun. So I know I want to recruit a team. Now, I don't know how many people or how to recruit. Kind of coming off your first summer should be like, just check out at the end of your first summer should be labeled Bad Recruiter Seminar, okay? BRS. That's what checkout at the end of your first summer should be called. Because you come off of that, you go back to school as the worst possible recruiter. Because my friends have been doing regular stuff. They didn't have a maximum experience. So I come back, and it's almost like I have to defend what I just did by taking them from zero information to my worst day crying in the first introduction to here's what my summer was, right? They're not ready for that. But that's me as a recruiter going, well, if they're going to do it, they better know. I don't want to work with any wusses, I need people who are ready to really engage, want personal growth. They're like, this is stupid. Why did you do that? In fact, I even remember writing, I had a writing class the semester that I got back, and we could pick any topic. And I wrote a story about my worst day, the day that actually broke me and I cried. And I'm reading this thing in class. You know, like everybody writes their paper, and then you have to read it, and then everybody gets to critique it, you know, and stuff. And I'm thinking, this is a great thing. Like I'm, you know, breaking down, and I'm riding through a storm on a scooter, and I'm like, the rain is like pinpricks in my face, you know, and all this stuff, and it's so dramatic. And I'm like, but then I got to the gas station, and I went in and dried off with paper towels, and I was soaked to the skin through 3 layers of clothes, and I went across the street and sold the lady 15 units, and it was so awesome. And everyone is just like, why is that awesome? Like, and then so during the critique, they're like, well, why didn't you just stay home? It was raining. It sounds like it wasn't even safe to be out. Like, why would you do that? I'm like, are you serious? You know? And I'm thinking, no, I'm going to recruit people from this. Here's one thing that I want you to potentially consider from this weekend. And this is one of the major, major benefits of Southwestern for people who get to do this more than once, okay? If I had stopped there with my Southwestern career, I kind of would have always, I don't know, maybe you mature over time. My hunch is I would have always compartmentalized my Southwestern experience as being just this kind of super emotional, really hard thing that existed back when. Does that make sense? When I had a chance to do it over and over, there was something that started to become clear to me. And one of those things was that there are different kinds of sales that we have to make in our career, in our lives, right? We know we're all going to do things that involve selling of some kind. Maybe it's a product, maybe it's ourselves, maybe it's whatever. You get that concept. Some sales are made in short increments, like the types of selling, like the types of selling that we do during the summer. You can go into a mom's house and 20 minutes later leave with a check, because we're talking about a couple $100s worth of educational products. Like, people can process that in a short amount of time. And in the summer, we get really good at learning what does it take to do that. And a lot of those things are transferable to other parts of life. But we also have to acknowledge, if we're talking to somebody about 3 months of their life, that's a much bigger sale. And actually, most of the types of selling that you guys are going to do further in your life are actually going to be big selling opportunities. Sometimes products, sometimes concepts, sometimes group things, you know, like relationship dynamics, like whatever. They're big. What I want you to understand is that that's why learning how to recruit properly is such a big deal, because big sales are best made in layers, okay? If you want to take away anything that's actually important from this talk, you could just write that down. Big sales are made in layers. What I mean is, I started talking to my children about the idea of Southwestern when they were very little, because I can't recruit them. They have to choose Southwestern, right? But I want to layer that gently, over time. Just keep layering it. Because someday I need them to be prepared that when they sit down to hear about Southwestern, they're primed to receive it. Okay? We recognize that babies cannot eat steak. So if you're ever a babysitter and you're thinking, what should I feed the baby? Don't cook a steak. Babies can't eat steaks. Babies like soft foods. And they can handle soft foods, and they can digest soft foods. We'll just stop there, but they can get that far with soft foods. Kids that are a little more mature in their understanding can handle more solid stuff. And grown kids can actually eat steak. So what I'm saying is there's a maturing process before somebody can handle the heavy stuff. That's layers. We have to incorporate that with recruiting. Give your people the benefit of the doubt. They don't have to go to your worst day on the book field to know what it's really about. There's a day and a time for that, right? But layer it. Just be gentle. Because I went to my first Great Recruiters seminar, and I'm like, okay, now I'm really ready to recruit. And I went back and I saw my friends. I'm like, hey, I'm really looking forward to talking to you guys about that whole thing I did last summer, because I'm going to go do it again. And I just really want to talk to you. And they're like, yeah, well, what about the day when you were, crying on the curb and your town was flooding and, you're riding that scooter around? And it sounded really stupid. I'm not doing that. I'm like, man, I really screwed myself. That is a shame. So, but that's how it goes. Well, I just want to, that's one of the things about recruiting year after year. My first team, I recruited 5, and 4 of them quit, and I learned a lot. That I was like, man, I have a lot to improve on with managing and leading people. Now, the one guy who stayed was my roommate for 3 summers, and he was the best man at my wedding, and he almost quit. And I remember sitting on our, we had a routine. Saturday night, we called Pizza Hut, and we're like, bring us the Bigfoot pizza. We'll be on the back porch. And we were sitting on the back porch waiting for the Pizza Hut guy, and he's like, man, Pat, I saw a sign for Interstate 80 today, and I almost got on it. I'm like, my whole team's gone, right? And I'm like, and he's my roommate. He goes, Interstate 80 goes right back to Chicago and then all the way to Virginia Beach, which is where I'm from. And I'm just like, no, it's all going away, all going away. And he's like, and I'm like, well, why? And he said, well, I just don't know if I believe in the books. I mean, I don't know if they make that big of a difference. And I'm like, I thought you said you wanted to get a set for your younger brother and sister. And there's this long pause. And he's like, yeah, good point. All right, I'll stay. And I'm just like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And he killed it that summer, and we were, we're still awesome friends. I don't know why I told that part, because that's kind of derailing from the talk, but so far so good, 20 minutes. I mean, we're hanging in there. So thank you. Thank you. All right, so let me put a bow on this thing, and then I will say a couple things about Southwestern Real Estate, just because that's what I do now. Okay, so the idea here is this. Okay, when I have heard some stories about recruits of this day and age. Like every generation has its strengths and weaknesses, right? I hear more stories about people who come out to sell books these days who sell for a month and go, I think I got what I came for. I'm good. I learned what I wanted. Thank you. I'm going home. I hear about that. I don't know if that's like a thing that maybe I'm just hearing those stories or if that's a thing. I don't really know. But I just want you guys to know this. we have to recognize, like, you guys as leaders have to be the ones that are self-identifying that this job offers you a maximum experience every single year you're in it. Okay? When you're a first year and you go sell books and that's your only job, you're like, oh my gosh, that was maximum, right? That's why you have all that stuff to work out. But then you come back and you bring a team and you're so concerned about your team that selling books is kind of like, yeah, I've been on the phone all morning. When I get back to my HQ, I'm going to be on the phone until I go to sleep, working with my team, keeping these guys alive, keeping them growing. That's like a maximum thing. Selling books is like my break. Okay, you've stepped up a notch. And I remember when they said, hey, Pat, we think you are ready to be an OL. And I'm like, no. I don't want to be an OL. Jason's so good at it. Can Jason just keep doing it? And they're like, no. Jason's going to have his own group, and you're going to have a group. And I'm like, no. And you know what? Being an OL was a maximum experience. And selling books was like nothing when you're an OL. It was like, finally, I get a break. I can go sell. It's just me and Mrs. Jones. Oh, thank you. I'm just going to love on some moms today. This is nice. Now think about that progression. When I became an associate sales leader, I was like, this is a whole new world of maximum. When I became a district sales manager, a whole new world opened up. It keeps going. That's what you guys have to offer people. And I didn't hear the girl who was before, but she was talking about something about trying another internship, right? And how it turned out to be just so nothing. Okay? That's reality. You guys are offering the world to people. And it changes their life. It changes lives. That's the reason why I pitch my kids gradually, because it is my heart's desire to see them have that, right? In a good, healthy org. Like, that's the best you could hope for your kids. Get them in a healthy org, good student managers, like people who they can totally rock with, and then let them suffer and struggle and whatever, that's fine. But is there's strong leadership, they can know the book field in the best way. That's the best, right? So that takes layers. That takes learning how to do that. You guys have an opportunity to help people have that experience. And so I just encourage you to keep after it, okay? Keep getting better at what you do. I would not be doing real estate if it was not Southwestern Real Estate. When I was transitioning from Southwestern, I had a great 15-year career with Southwestern. When I was transitioning, and Henry was like, hey, you like real estate. Why don't we start a real estate company together? And I'm like, what do you have in mind? And he's like, well, there's a ton of people who have gone on to great careers in real estate that used to sell with us. And if we built a real estate company, they wouldn't have to go sell for Keller Williams or Century 21 or whoever people go sell real estate with. They could just do it with us. And I was like, well, okay, that's interesting. I had no idea. That wasn't anything I was planning on doing. And to be honest with you, I don't really know how a realtor works. Like, how's that a thing? But I'll think about it. And he was like, okay, well, if you ever, figure it out, give us a call. And so I didn't think I was going to do that. But over months of kind of talking to people and figuring some things out, I called up Henry one day and I was like, hey, Henry, I've been talking to enough people and I think I've got an idea how real estate could work for Southwestern. And I would only want to do this with Southwestern people. So what do you think? Can you send me to this weekend conference where they're going to teach me everything that you need to do to be a realtor, and then we can start? And he goes, yeah, that sounds great. So I did the weekend thing, and I called him back up, and I'm like, okay, I took all the notes. I think I got it. So what do you think? And he goes, all right, you're the president. Send us a budget. And I'm like, budget? I'm a DSM. I don't know anything about a budget. And he goes, oh, well, we got people who can help you with that, but, just like, how much do you need to get paid? Let's start with that. I'm like, what? How much do I need to get paid? I'm like, Jenny, how much do we need to get paid? And she's like, okay. Essentially, what was so cool, at that time in Illinois, to become a real estate office, you could become your own. Typically, there's a managing broker who oversees your activities, and then there's agents. And after a few years, agents can graduate, go take the test, start their own office, be a managing broker if they want to. In Illinois, they had a short window where they're like, let's just let whoever wants to be a managing broker, start their own office, whatever. You can do it your first day as long as you pass all the tests. So I'm like, Henry, we can just do this where I live, and we can just start it. And it's a terrible idea, because I passed the test, and I don't know how to do anything. I mean, they don't tell you how to fill out a contract. They don't tell you how to do any of this stuff. It's just a bunch of stuff you don't actually use when you're doing real estate. But I did it, and we started. And you know what was so great about it? It was like, okay, Henry doesn't know anything about a real estate company. I don't really know anything about a real estate company. But we're in business because we both believe that together we'll just figure it out. And the only reason I had the confidence to go, well, we'll just start, is because that's what you do with Southwestern, right? I mean, Southwestern trains, like, think about your first sales school. You train and train and train and train, and then you get to North Dakota, and they're like, there's your first house. Go get them, Tiger. And you're like, what? You're like, I'm doing this? And then you blow it, house after house, right? And then somebody buys, and you're like, I don't even know why they bought. But fast forward a few weeks, and you're like, not too bad. And I was like, it's just going to be like that. And today, you guys, like 10 years ago, I spent the whole year working to sell $1 million worth of real estate, right? That's not a lot. That's not a lot of real estate. This year, our company sold $100 million worth of real estate. This year. And we didn't even recruit anybody for like the first 4 years. So, I mean, this thing's happening. And I just look at it like, I'm just so thankful that the Southwestern Advantage program helped me develop the skills and the desire and the aptitude and all the things that come from Southwestern to be able to take a step like that without as much fear as somebody who might go, I'm so scared, I just can't do it. So anyway, that's what we're doing. I'm super thankful all my friends from Southwestern Real Estate popped over from the restaurant that they had to scarf down their food in order to get over here to hear this. I'm super thankful for all of you and the work that you're doing. Southwestern Advantage is the most important company in the family of companies. And I want you all to know, an entire corporation that did over 200 and however many million dollars of revenue last year is largely run by college students, is the most important company in the entire corporation. You guys need to know that. That's for real. So thank you for what you're doing.